Hello to all who watch this video. I'm Bunmei. Today we have a theory of Izuku, so get your popcorn ready. This is about to begin.
What if Izuku had been Midnight's son? Complete theory, Izuku x Mirko x Melissa. In this universe, the students and aspiring heroes had come to the USJ facility, also called the Unexpected Event Simulation Unit, for the second time. The first time All Might was present, so no one was hurt, and the students gained experience fighting villains. As things did not escalate, Principal Nizu and the teachers except Midnight agreed. Midnight spoke with concern, not to question it, but is it safe to just send Aizawa and All Might? It's no secret that he's getting weaker every day, and if the villains attack again, I think they'll be better prepared this time. Most ignored that, which left an annoyed Midnight who simply left the place. She picked up her phone and called the only man she really loved, and of course it was her greatest pride, it was her son, Izuku Kayama. He waited for a while until he heard a hello from the phone. Midnight was really happy, and even though her son wasn't the most charismatic when talking, she still loved him. She knew her son was often upset that almost no one knew he was her son. She would tell him that she was hiding it, because she knew he had a bad reputation, and her son might suffer because of him. Izuku was not happy. But once he became a hero, he said he would reveal it to the world. Izuku had already been an official hero for a year. He only hoped to make a grand entrance and draw the attention of all of Japan. Because Izuku wanted everyone to know who his mother was. The first B students would go to the facility in the afternoon and the first A students in the evening. The darkness of night loomed over the aspiring hero students, tinting the buildings with eerie shadows as the students went about their evening training. And none of them foresaw the coming storm. Suddenly, the students' training was interrupted by a thunderous roar, accompanied by an ominous glow. A portal opened in the middle of the training ground, flashing with an eerie light that heralded the arrival of the villains. Many of the students recognized whose portal it was. From deep within that dimensional opening emerged shadowy figures, led by the dark figure of Shigaraki, whose eyes burned with an insatiable desire for chaos and destruction. The students, startled and alarmed, prepared for combat as their hearts pounded with a mixture of fear and determination. Aizawa, the teacher with the piercing gaze and trademark scarf, stepped out to meet the villains. "Students, stay safe," he ordered in a firm voice, making it clear with his tone that he would not tolerate any deviation. But before he could say anything else, a deafening roar echoed from the portal, heralding the arrival of a formidable foe, a Nomu, a mutant abomination designed for battle. Aizawa clenched his fists in determination, aware of the danger that loomed over them. Unfortunately, All Might was left doing paperwork and figured the villains wouldn't be such idiots to attack the students a second time. "That's a Nomu," exclaimed Melissa Shield, her voice trembling but full of courage. "Last time I could barely heard it." Momo Yaoyorozu, with her analytical mind and gift for creation, quickly took the initiative. "We have to work together. Keep him at bay while I come up with a plan." Most of her teammates looked at her in disbelief at the order not to go. Katsuki, who was the proudest, knew that monster was in another league. Kyoka Jiro, his headphones buzzing with anticipation, nodded with determination. "Count me in, Momo, I'll try to stun it with my waves." The battle erupted into a frenzy of movement and power, with the students fighting valiantly against the some villains that had been thrown at them. Melissa unleashed the power of the One for All, channeling her energy with determination as she launched devastating blows against the Nomu. Momo, with her sharp mind and creation skills, summoned a pair of sedative guns to put the monster to sleep. Kyoka, with his sonic cables, rumbled the eardrums of the villains that approached them. But for all its bravery and skill, the Nomu was a formidable foe, its strength and endurance seemingly endless. The students fought with all their might, but the price of battle became apparent when Melissa, Momo and Kyoka were severely injured in the heat of combat. "I can't give up now," cried Melissa, her voice full of pain, as in an oversight the Nomu delivered a heavy blow to her right leg and she clearly felt that she had broken several bones, but she wouldn't give up because of it. "We have to protect Aizawa-sensei." Momo nodded, her face drenched in sweat from the use of her gift. "Comrades, those who can give support get the injured out, we can't let evil triumph. Let's stand up and fight together." Kyoka, on shaky but steady legs, adjusted her headphones pointing menacingly at the villains. "We will not surrender. We are heroes in training, and we will not back down in the face of adversity." Just when it seemed the battle was lost, a glimmer of hope appeared on the horizon in the form of an imposing figure pouncing on the villains with unstoppable ferocity. It was All Might, the symbol of peace, whose presence filled the battlefield with a sense of renewed hope. "All Might is here," Melissa shouted, her voice filled with relief and gratitude. "We are going to win this battle," exclaimed those who were still conscious. With the arrival of hero number 1, the tide of battle turned irrevocably. All Might fought with relentless determination, defeating all the villains with overwhelming force and restoring peace to the Hero Academy. I should clarify that, although All Might had the wound from the original story, it wasn't as severe, so he was able to keep fighting longer. But the victory was not without cost. With the news of the attack, the press descended on the Academy like a plague of vipers, demanding answers and accountability. Principal Nizu, with his usual astuteness and calm, stepped out in the face of tough questions and offered solutions. "The safety of our students is our #1 priority," Nizu stated calmly and firmly. "I am committed to improving our defenses and taking additional measures to protect the Academy from future attacks." And with a smile he proclaims for all of Japan to hear. "We are going to hire an underground hero, one whose power and skills could be the key to protecting the Academy and its students from future threats. To me and to all of you it should come as a surprise, for it is none other than Midnight's son, Izuku Kayama." Needless to say, that proclamation left all of Japan in awe. The announcement that Midnight had a son came as an unexpected shock to everyone at the Hero Academy and all of Japan. Surprise mingled with murmurs of disbelief as rumors spread like wildfire in a dry forest. To many, it was unthinkable that the famous heroine Midnight, known for her sensuality and mystery, could have a child. But the truth, as is often the case, was much more complicated. "Did you hear about Midnight? It seems she has a secret child," murmured a student as rumors spread through the halls of the AU. "It can't be. No way. Since when does Midnight have a son?" exclaimed another, eyes wide with astonishment. Meanwhile, in Midnight's office, the heroine was immersed in a phone conversation that would turn the tide. "Izuku? Yes, it's me. Mom. Honey, I know you've already heard from the news, but I need you to come to UA, Midnight said with a hint of urgency in her voice, her words echoing in the empty room. "To the UA? Why, Mom?" replied Izuku on the other end of the line, his tone somewhere between surprised and reluctant to do as his mother asked. "The dangers are increasing, and I know I can trust you to protect my students and the Academy," Midnight explained, her heart pounding with maternal concern, for even though she knew how powerful her son was she was still worried about his well-being. Izuku was silent for a moment, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. "I understand, Mom. I'll do whatever it takes to help," he finally said, his voice full of determination. And so, as the world prepared to meet Izuku Kayama, an underground hero who worked the night, Hero Academy prepared to welcome its newest advocate, one whose name would resonate throughout Japan. The Hero Academy Gymnasium echoed with excitement and anticipation as students from Class 1A and Class 1B gathered for a special joint training session. Murmurs and laughter filled the air as the young heroes exchanged greetings and compliments, eager to test their skills against their classmates. At one end of the gymnasium, the teachers of each class were preparing to supervise the training session. Professor Aizawa, with his stern expression and trademark scarf, was watching with his usual penetrating gaze to make sure everything was in order. On the other side, Professor Vlad King, with his relaxed but authoritative attitude, was urging his students to prepare for the combat practice that awaited them. But among the teachers there was one figure who stood out above the rest, Midnight. This time, however, his presence was different. Instead of his usual flirtatious smile and mysterious air, his face was illuminated by a radiant and genuine smile, an expression of pure happiness that could not be hidden. The students noticed the change at once, and curious glances turned to Midnight's heroine, wondering what could have put her in such a good mood. "Have you seen Midnight? She looks so happy," a student in Class 1A whispered to his classmate as they watched the heroine from afar. "Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I wonder what happened to her," replied the other, frowning curiously. Meanwhile, Midnight moved among the students with an infectious energy, greeting each one with enthusiasm and joy. His words were full of encouragement and optimism, and his presence seemed to infuse a new energy into the gym. Finally, when everyone was assembled and ready to begin training, Midnight made her way to the entrance of the gym, her smile still beaming. "Good morning, my dear students," she announced, her voice charged with enthusiasm. "Today is a special day, so get ready to give it your all and show the world what you're capable of." Midnight's enthusiasm boiled over and she shouted her son's name with a tone of pure joy. At that moment, a flute melody filled the gym, causing everyone to turn to see where it came from. A flash of white illuminated the space next to Midnight, and in an instant, a purple-haired young man appeared at his side, receiving his mother's affection with a warm smile. Izuku Kayama, Midnight's son, was a person of calm but powerful presence, with an aura of confidence radiating around him. As Izuku was taller than his mother, he bent down slightly to allow her to stroke his hair, creating a tender and touching scene that made more than one person in the gymnasium sigh. However, the joyful atmosphere was interrupted by the intervention of Katsuki Bakugo, who, as usual, could neither hold his acid tongue nor his arrogance. "What the hell is Midnight doing here? We don't need a flirtatious bitch like her," shouted Katsuki with her usual rudeness, eliciting looks of surprise and disapproval from her classmates. Izuku, however, did not tolerate the insult to his mother and his gaze hardened, his blue eyes turned yellow flashing with dangerous intensity. An aura of murderous intent came off him, causing Katsuki to instinctively recoil, his face paled in fear, and he fell to the ground. At Katsuki's reaction, the other students could not contain their laughter, seeing the class bully turned into a laughing stock. The scene, though tense for a moment, dissipated in a sea of laughter and boos, making it clear that no one, not even Katsuki Bakugo, was above Izuku Kayama. As Izuku prepared to address the situation, the silence that followed the burst of laughter was tense, charged with palpable anticipation. His eyes that were once again blue shone with fierce determination, and his expression was marked by a mixture of displeasure and resolve. With a firm step, he approached Katsuki, who was visibly recoiling from the piercing gaze of Midnight's son. "Izuku, wait." His mother started to say, but Izuku held up a hand to stop her from saying anything else, his attention completely focused on Katsuki. "How dare you talk about my mother like that?" Izuku said in a calm but commanding voice, her gaze piercing Katsuki's with an intensity that could not be ignored. Katsuki, for the first time in a long time, found herself speechless, her usual bravado disappearing under the weight of Izuku's stern gaze. A flash of remorse crossed his red eyes before defiance and pride flooded back into his face. "She's nothing but a dash," Katsuki started to say, but Izuku didn't give her a chance to finish her insult. "Enough," Izuku interrupted, raising his voice authoritatively. "You have no idea who my mother is or what she means to me, let alone how hard she's worked to raise me, only to have some jerk come along and disrespect her. I will not tolerate you insulting her like that again." The gym was now in complete silence, each student watching the interaction intently, some with surprise and others with admiration for Izuku's bravery in confronting Katsuki. Katsuki, for his part, was in an unusually vulnerable position, facing Izuku's fury with an expression that oscillated between surprise and discomfort. For a moment, he seemed on the verge of retorting, but then his shoulders gave way in a gesture of surrender. "I'm sorry," Katsuki murmured, his voice barely a whisper, but laden with a sincerity that surprised everyone present. "I shouldn't have said that. It was stupid of me." Izuku nodded in pleasure, his expression softening slightly at the sincere apology. "I'll accept your apology, but remember to control yourself. A hero without control is simply a villain," he replied calmly, making it clear that the dispute had come to an end. With the conflict resolved, the atmosphere in the gym relaxed, and soon the students dispersed to continue training. However, the exchange between Izuku and Katsuki left a lasting impression on everyone's mind, and left a great impression on the newcomer, for like a good son he defended his mother. After the training, when the gym training was over and the students were starting to leave, Midnight found herself alone with her son, Izuku. They sat together in a quiet corner of the gym, away from everyone, but surrounded by the aura of complicity and love between mother and son. For a moment, silence reigned between them, but it was a comfortable silence, charged with mutual understanding and appreciation. They knew they didn't need words to express how much they meant to each other. But finally, it was Midnight who broke the silence, his words resonating with a mixture of emotion and vulnerability. "Izuku, son," she began, her voice trembling as she struggled to contain the emotions that swept through her. Izuku looked up to meet his mother's eyes and saw tears threatening to fall. He quickly stood up and wrapped his arms around his mother, letting her lean against him as she poured her heart out. "Mother, what's wrong with you?" asked Izuku worriedly, his heart clenching at the sight of his mother so vulnerable. Midnight sobbed, her tears falling freely as she clung to her son tightly. "Forgive me, Izuku," she murmured between sobs. "Forgive me for hiding you from the world, for not being able to give you all the love you deserved. I have always loved you more than anything in this world, but I was afraid that my own reputation might hurt you, and so I hid you from the world. I know you suffered and grew up friendless, and all because of my stupid fault." Izuku gently stroked his mother's hair, his own eyes full of tenderness and understanding. "Mother, you have nothing to apologize for," he said in a soft but firm voice. "I know you did what you thought best for me, and I thank you for it. I'm proud to be your son, and nothing will change that." Izuku's words were a comfort to Midnight's broken heart, and slowly the storm of emotions subsided. They broke away from the embrace, but remained sitting side by side, sharing a moment of peace and connection that needed no words. Finally, with a smile, Midnight looked at his son with gratitude and love. "Thank you, Izu," he said, his voice full of emotion. "I promise I will never hide you again. I want the world to know that you are my son and how proud I am of you." Izuku smiled tenderly, feeling a surge of gratitude and love for his mother. "I am ready, mother. Together we will face whatever the future holds," she promised, sealing her commitment with an embrace and a bond of unbreakable love between mother and son. Weeks passed and curiosity about the new teacher, Izuku Kayama, grew among the students. After a particularly intense training session, Mina, the pink-skinned girl known for her outgoing spirit, could not contain her curiosity and stepped forward to ask Izuku a question. "Hey, Izuku-sensei. How old are you?" asked Mina with a mischievous smile. The question caught many by surprise, but Izuku answered calmly. "I'm 16, he said, his modest tone contrasting with the revelation of his age, which left more than one amazed at how young the new teacher was. Curiosity did not stop there, and soon Mina, along with Momo and Melissa, dared to ask the question that haunted the minds of many female students. "Do you have a girlfriend?" they asked in unison, with expectant expressions on their faces. Izuku's answer elicited a collective sigh of disappointment among the female students. "Yes, I have a girlfriend," he said with a slight apologetic smile, without revealing any further details about his love life. Meanwhile, Aizawa watched from a corner, with his characteristic stoic expression, but with a glint of annoyance in his eyes. He had felt ignored over the past few days, overshadowed by the presence of the new master, and that did not sit well with him. Attention was then diverted to Melissa, who took the opportunity to ask a question that had been on everyone's mind since Izuku arrived at the academy. "What's your quirk, Izuku-sensei? We've never seen it in action during our practice classes," Melissa asked, curiosity palpable in her voice. Izuku's answer surprised everyone. "I haven't used my quirk since I became a teacher," he confessed earnestly. "I prefer to rely on my own strength and abilities instead of relying on my quirk." Izuku's words elicited murmurs of surprise from the students, who could not believe that a professional hero would give up the use of his quirk. Izuku confessed that that was why he respected people without quirk, because they were the strongest people he would ever meet, because he knows that society treats them like garbage. But they live their lives with dreams and hope, with the faith that someday everything will get better. Those words touched Melissa, because all her life she lived without a dawn and thought that no one would appreciate her for being useless, and meeting a professional hero like Izuku made her feel very happy. And that ignited something inside her. She wanted a man like Izuku in her life, and if she had to fight for his love, she would do it without hesitation. We see Kyoka, with her trademark hair and ears as headphones, and she asks Izuku a more personal question. "What's your partner's name, Izuku-sensei?" she asked curiously. Before Izuku could answer, a figure sped past in front of them, breaking the window and launching a kick attempt towards Izuku. Izuku dodged it by somersaulting backwards. Everyone was stunned to recognize the heroine Mirko, whose unexpected presence left everyone with bated breath and unanswered questions about what was going on. Mirko wasted no time, grabbed Izuku by the shirt and kissed him. Mirko's sudden kiss left everyone present stunned, unable to process what they were witnessing. The heroine had burst onto the scene so radically that they didn't even have time to react before she approached Izuku and kissed him. Izuku, surprised but unresisting, let himself be carried away by Mirko's kiss. It was clear that there was a story between them, a story that left everyone present with their heads spinning. Among the students, surprise was mixed with mixed emotions. Some looked on in envy, others in amazement, and still others in bewilderment at the unexpected scene unfolding in front of them. Melissa, in particular, felt a knot in her stomach as she witnessed the kiss between her teacher and Mirko. Although she had kept her feelings to herself, she couldn't help but feel a pang of sadness at the realization that her romantic interest in Izuku would not be reciprocated. However, she decided to keep her composure and not let her emotions get the better of her. After a few moments that seemed to last an eternity, Mirko finally broke away from Izuku, leaving a tension in the air as the students were still trying to process what they had just witnessed. Mirko being Mirko breaks the tension in the air. Loudly exclaiming, "Welcome to Hero Academy, Izuku Kayama," exclaimed Mirko with a mischievous grin, before turning around and disappearing with the same speed he had arrived with, leaving everyone bewildered. The gym was silent for a moment, before the bustle and murmur of conversations filled the place again. However, the impression of Mirko's unexpected kiss to Izuku would remain in the minds of the students for a long time, leaving many questions that Izuku would not give answers to. At the end of class, Izuku headed to his mother's office after receiving a text message. When he arrived, he was surprised to see his mother with a smile that didn't look friendly at all, next to Mirko, who had a bump on his head. Seeing his mother's expression, Izuku's heart skipped a beat. It was a smile he knew very well, the same one she used to have when she was about to give a lecture or a life lesson. Mirko, on the other hand, looked a little disheveled from the bump on her head, but her gaze still radiated her usual aura of confidence and bravery. "What's going on here?" asked Izuku, trying to hide the nervousness he felt. His mother and Mirko exchanged a meaningful glance before his mother took the floor. "Izuku, dear," she began in a calm but firm voice, "it seems we have some business to discuss with you." Izuku swallowed nervously, wondering what could have happened for his mother and Mirko to be in his office together. The atmosphere in the office became tense when Izuku's mother confronted him about hiding his romantic relationship with her friend. Mirko, visibly uncomfortable, seemed to want to intervene, but a stern look from Izuku's mother instantly shut her up. "What's going on here, Izuku?" asked Izuku's mother with a mixture of surprise and concern in her voice. Izuku, feeling between a rock and a hard place, swallowed saliva before answering. "I'm so sorry, mother. I didn't want you to find out like this," she said, with obvious nervousness. Mirko, noticing the awkwardness in the atmosphere, tried to intervene. "Kayama, she began, but a stern look from her friend silenced her again, realizing that it was not her place to speak at that moment. Izuku's mother asked several questions, wanting to fully understand the situation. "How long have you two been dating? Why didn't you tell me before?" she asked, her expression serious but also with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Izuku took a deep breath, preparing to explain himself. "We met during a mission to capture a villain. Mirko was in danger and I went to help her," she replied, remembering the moment clearly. Then Izuku's mother turned to Mirko with a piercing look. "How do you treat my son, Mirko?" she asked, with a serious tone that tolerated no evasion. Mirko felt uncomfortable under the inquisitive gaze of her friend and her boyfriend's mother. A slight blush tinged her cheeks as she answered truthfully. "I treat Izuku with respect and affection. He's an amazing person and I'm grateful to have him in my life," she admitted, her voice softer than usual. To everyone else she was a rude woman who always smiled smugly, but with her boyfriend she was submissive and very loving, as she loved spending time with Izuku, and every moment she spent with him, her world changed for the better. After hearing the answers, Izuku's mother continued with more questions, wanting to make sure her son had a healthy and happy relationship. Finally, After a long conversation and some clarification, Izuku's mother accepted her son's relationship. Although it had been a tense and uncomfortable moment for everyone present, Izuku's mother's acceptance brought relief and reassurance to the couple. Izuku withdrew from the room, feeling calmer knowing that his mother accepted their relationship. However, Rumi, before she could fully escape, Midnight grabbed her friend's arm. "Rumi, promise me you'll take care of him," Midnight said in a serious tone, her gaze conveying a fierce determination. "If anything ever happens to Izuku, I won't be a happy mother. I will do everything in my power to make sure whoever is responsible pays for it." Rumi, who always defied fate with her fearless attitude, nodded nervously at her friend's words. She knew Midnight wasn't joking and that her words carried very real weight. "I will protect him with my life, you can trust me," Rumi replied, trying to calm the nerves coursing through her body. With a gesture of understanding, Midnight let go of Rumi's arm and looked at her one last time, before Rumi headed for the exit, ready to fulfill the promise she had just made. Days later we see Melissa Shield found herself in the Gamma training camp, surrounded by the chaos she herself had unleashed. There was debris and chunks of concrete strewn everywhere, testament to the fury that consumed her. Every blow she threw against the wreckage of shattered structures echoed through the air, though it was not only the sound of impact, but also the cracking of her own hands, hurting herself in the process. The sun was slowly setting below the horizon, covering the sky in orange hues that reflected across the Gamma field. Melissa barely noticed the coming of night as she continued her destructive frenzy, unable to contain the storm of emotions that overwhelmed her. Each blow was a desperate attempt to release the frustration that had consumed her since the day she lost the sports festival. She had trained tirelessly for that moment, had put in endless hours of practice and effort, and yet she had been defeated. The harsh defeat had left a bitter taste in her mouth, a constant reminder of her own limitations and failures. With each blow, Melissa felt the pain increase in her hands, but she ignored it, letting the rage and frustration consume her completely. She could not stop, she could not allow herself to give up, not until she had released all the rage that had tormented her since that day. The destruction and the roar caused by Melissa's shield caught the attention of someone who had been watching her from the beginning. It was Izuku Kayama. He knew the effort Melissa had put into her training, but he also knew that her defeat was due to her lack of mastery over her quirk. He decided that enough was enough, so he approached his student, determined to stop her destructive venting. "Melissa, stop it," Izuku said in a firm but sympathetic tone as he stepped between her and the debris she was hitting. Melissa, her face flushed with anger and tears, didn't stop. "Leave me alone," she screamed, her voice trembling from the mixture of emotions that swept over her. "I'm too weak. That's why I lost." Tears began welling up in her eyes as she let out everything she had been holding inside. Izuku looked at her with understanding, knowing that he couldn't stop her pain with mere words. Finally, Melissa couldn't take it anymore and collapsed on the floor, sobbing inconsolably. Izuku came over and hugged her gently, letting her vent on his shoulder. After a moment, Izuku pulled away and held Melissa's face in his hands. "Life isn't easy," he said earnestly, but also with warmth in his voice. "There will always be things we can't do, but the important thing is how we respond. We can choose to get up and keep going, or give up. You have the power to decide which path to take." Melissa looked up at him with reddened, tear-soaked eyes, nodding slowly at her teacher's words. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she wasn't alone. With the help and support of Izuku and the others, she would find the strength to keep going, even in the most difficult times. Izuku approached Melissa with a serious expression. "Melissa, I have something important to tell you," he began, searching for the right words to convey the delicate information he was about to reveal. Melissa looked at him with curiosity and a bit of trepidation. "What is it, Izuku? Why that serious expression?" Izuku took a breath before continuing. "My quirk is something unique and powerful, but I haven't used it since I became a teacher," he confessed, feeling the need to be completely honest with his student. "It's called Duke Org. It allows me to transform into two different forms. The first gives me wolf-like characteristics, such as ears and tail, and greatly increases my senses and strength. The second form is much darker. I almost look like a demon. That's why my hero name is Zeniku." Melissa was silent for a moment, processing the revelation. Her eyes reflected a mixture of surprise and amazement. "I had no idea, but that explains a lot," she muttered, her mind spinning as she tried to take in all the information. Izuku nodded with understanding. "I know it's a lot to digest, Melissa. But now that you know the truth, we can work together so that you can control and use your quirk safely and effectively. I'm here to help you with whatever you need," he assured her sincerely. Melissa smiled, grateful for her teacher's sincerity. "Thank you, Izuku. Knowing that gives me a new perspective and motivates me to improve," she replied with determination in her voice. Izuku looked Melissa straight in the eye. "Do you think having a quirk like mine makes me a villain?" he asked, waiting for her response. Melissa quickly shook her head. "No, of course not. You're an amazing person, Izuku. You would never be able to be a villain," she replied convincingly. "You have a noble heart and a great sense of justice." A warm smile formed on Izuku's face. "Hee, thank you, Melissa. And that's why someone like you is not useless," he said sweetly. "You have the heart of a true hero. Starting today, I will work with you to help you overcome your limits and become the hero I know you can be." Melissa, with tears in her eyes, ran to Izuku and hugged him tightly, letting the emotion of the moment wash over them both. Sensing his fiery determination, Melissa asked Izuku to transform into his second form, for she wanted to see for herself the true nature of her master. Izuku hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded, feeling the confidence and bravery emanating from Melissa. "Are you sure you want to see me like this, Melissa? In this form, I look more like a demon than a hero," she warned with concern. Melissa looked up, determination burning in her eyes. "I know very well what matters, Izuku. And it's not the outward appearance, but what's in your heart. I want to see your true form," he replied firmly. Izuku nodded, touched by Melissa's trust and faith in him. Slowly, he began to channel his quirk, letting the darkness envelop him and transform his body into the imposing figure of Zenitsu, the wolf demon. When the transformation was complete, Melissa stepped forward, without hesitation, and extended her hand towards Izuku's face. Her fingers trembled slightly at first, but soon relaxed as she gently caressed her sensei's dark, furry skin. "You don't have to hide this part of you, Izuku," Melissa said in a soft but firm voice. "It's part of who you are, and I accept you completely." Melissa's words resonated in Izuku's heart, filling him with a sense of calm and acceptance. "Thank you, Melissa. It means a lot to me that you accept me like this," he replied with a thick voice but one that conveyed gratitude in his voice. Melissa smiled, a radiant smile lighting up her face. "The important thing is that you're a hero at heart, and that's what really matters," she stated with conviction. Izuku felt great admiration for Melissa. Slowly, he leaned toward her and embraced her tenderly, sealing their shared bond as teammates and friends. Then, in an act of bravery and complicity, Melissa dared to give Izuku a kiss on the cheek. What they didn't expect was the presence of someone else. A faint cough echoed behind them, interrupting the intimate moment between Izuku and Melissa. Mirko stood with his arms crossed over his chest and a disapproving expression on his face. He was not amused by what he was seeing. He felt jealous of his boyfriend's closeness with the bespectacled, blonde-haired girl. Izuku, sensing the tension in the air, turned to Mirko and, before she left the scene, Izuku gently grabbed his hand. "Mirko, wait," he told her calmly, trying to stop her from walking away like that. Mirko frowned, clearly surprised by Izuku's gesture. "What do you want, Izuku?" she asked, not hiding her annoyance. Izuku held her gaze firmly, determined to address the situation. "Whatever you think is going on here, it's not what it seems," he began, searching for the right words to explain the situation. Melissa remained silent, watching the interaction intently, feeling uncomfortable about being in the middle of the dispute between Izuku and Mirko. "I understand your concern, Mirko, but I assure you that Melissa and I were just having an important conversation. Nothing more," Izuku continued, hoping his words could dispel any misunderstanding. Mirko stared at him for a moment, her expression softening slightly as she saw the sincerity in Izuku's eyes. "Okay, I'll let it go this time," he finally said, gently withdrawing his hand from Izuku's. "But make sure it doesn't happen again," she added, shooting him a warning look before turning and walking away. Izuku sighed in relief as Mirko walked away from the scene, thankful that the situation hadn't gone any further. He turned to Melissa with an awkward smile, hoping she understood the situation. "I'm sorry, Melissa. I didn't expect things to get so complicated," he apologized, feeling awkward for dragging her into the dispute. Melissa returned a reassuring smile. "It's okay, Izuku. I understand that these things tend to happen," she replied kindly, trying to calm his concern. Several days later, Melissa approached her teacher with a worried look on her face. "Izuku, are you okay? You've been a little sad lately," she asked him, noticing the change in his attitude. Izuku sighed, feeling the weight of her worries. "It's complicated, Melissa," he replied, trying to find the right words to explain his situation. Melissa frowned, worried about her teacher. "Is something wrong? Does it have something to do with Rumi?" Izuku nodded regretfully. "Yes, it has to do with Rumi," he admitted, feeling uncomfortable talking about it. Melissa waited patiently for Izuku to continue, worried about what might be going on. Finally, Izuku sighed and continued. "Rumi asked me for some space recently. She didn't explain much, but it left me thinking that maybe she's leaving me," she confessed, struggling to keep her composure as she talked about it. Melissa's expression softened, feeling empathy for her sensei. "I'm so sorry, Izuku. It must be hard to go through that," she replied sympathetically. Izuku nodded sadly. "Yes, it is. But I guess I'll just have to accept it. If that's what you really want, then I'll accept it," he said resignedly, though the pain in his voice was evident. Melissa placed a comforting hand on her sensei's shoulder. "Don't worry, Izuku. I'll always be here for you, no matter what," she assured him sincerely, wishing she could ease his burden somehow. Izuku gave her a small smile, grateful for his student's support. "Thank you, Melissa. It means a lot to me," she replied, feeling a bit of comfort in the midst of her pain. What Izuku didn't know was that Melissa was angry to see her love interest this sad, so she decided to take matters into her own hands and went straight to Mirko's house to complain to her. Melissa arrived at the door of Mirko's house with determination reflected in her eyes. She knocked loudly on the door, and Mirko, surprised by the visit, opened the door with a confused expression and some irritation. "What the hell are you thinking, Mirko? How could you make Izuku feel so bad? Don't you realize the damage you're causing him?" Melissa spat angrily as soon as Mirko opened the door. Mirko was stunned for a moment at the intensity of Melissa's rebuke. What are you saying, Melissa?" he retorted, unable to hide his surprise and confusion. "Are you aware of your actions? Izuku is thinking that you're going to end his relationship with him. He's truly broken because of you," Melissa continued, giving vent to all her pent-up frustration. Mirko's eyes filled with tears and his surprise turned to remorse and sadness. I didn't mean to hurt him. I just needed some time to be alone," she stammered, feeling a lump in her throat. Melissa, seeing Mirko's tears, felt a change in her heart. "I'm sorry. I didn't know," she mumbled, feeling guilty for having let herself get carried away in anger without fully understanding the situation. Both girls looked at each other for a moment, the weight of pain and confusion hanging in the air. Then, Melissa couldn't take it anymore and burst into sobs, confessing her own buried feelings. "I love Izuku too, and it hurts me to see him with someone other than me," she admitted truthfully, laying bare her vulnerability. Mirko, still with tears in his eyes, walked over to Melissa and hugged her tenderly. "I'm so sorry, Melissa. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm so confused and scared," she confessed, seeking comfort from the only person who understood her pain. After their heartfelt conversation, Mirko invited Melissa to his home. The atmosphere was warm and welcoming, and they soon found themselves sharing anecdotes and laughter as if they were lifelong friends. As they enjoyed ice cream and immersed themselves in the world of movies, the initial tension between them faded, leaving room for a true friendship to begin to blossom. As the evening progressed, Mirko proposed an exciting idea. "Melissa, how about coming on weekends to train with me? I think we could help each other and improve our skills," he suggested enthusiastically, imagining the possibilities for growth. Melissa, excited at the prospect of strengthening her bond with her new friend Rumi, nodded with a beaming smile. "I would love to," It would be great to train with you and learn from your experience, she replied enthusiastically, anticipating the things she would learn. After a while of sharing experiences and laughter, the topic of Izuku came up naturally in the conversation. Mirko, with a sympathetic gesture, looked at Melissa earnestly. Melissa, I know that Izuku matters a lot to you. And I want you to know that I'm willing to share it with you, he said sincerely, offering Melissa the chance to be with Izuku, despite any fears or doubts she might have. She loved Izuku too much and knew that if she were in Melissa's position she would be truly happy if she had the chance to be with Izuku. Melissa was struck by Mirko's generosity and understanding. A gleam of gratitude and hope shone in her eyes as she took in Mirko's words. Thank you, Rumi. It means a lot to me that you are willing to share Izuku. I hope I can stand by his side and support him, together with you, she said enthusiastically, feeling a weight lifted off her shoulders knowing she had Mirko's support. With the promise of a deeper friendship and lasting companionship, Melissa and Mirko said goodbye with a warm embrace and a fist bump, knowing that they had found in each other an ally in life, ready to face whatever challenges the future held for them together. 2 weeks had passed since Izuku had agreed to go out with Melissa. Now, he was in his mother's office, with his 2 friends, Melissa and Rumi, by his side, both with bumps on their heads. Midnight watched the scene with a tender smile, as she waited for an explanation as to how her son had ended up in this peculiar situation, having a relationship with 2 girls, one of them being his friend Rumi and the other being the most promising student at AU. Do you owe me an explanation? Izuku asked Midnight with his smile that promised pain if he wasn't told the truth. It was then that Izuku confessed that Melissa and Rumi were one day waiting for him in his room. And Melissa plucked up her courage and confessed her feelings to him. At first, he was confused, but when he saw his student's serious face and saw the mischievous look on his girlfriend Rumi's face, he knew he was serious. With nothing to lose he agreed to go out with Melissa. And with Rumi's horny time, they had a lot of fun in bed and Melissa also joined in the fun. Izuku wanted to go on giving details until Rumi hit him on the head. Rumi's face was red with embarrassment, baka that's not told so lightly. Melissa who was also red nodded quickly. Ha ha ha. Midnight let out a laugh, for her friend who always hated men approaching was really shy with her son. Well son, I'll overlook it. But I don't want to hear anything about you bringing another girl. Then her gaze fell on her friend and then on her student. And you too, stop sharing my son. Is that clear? They both nodded. Our pair of 3 was finally able to spend the days peacefully. Izuku was in charge of training his students and on weekends. He together with Rumi specially trained Melissa. Izuku and Rumi are training Melissa in a training yard when suddenly all the TVs and phones start broadcasting the League of Villains. On the screen, they see Midnight bound and blindfolded, with Shigaraki smiling sinisterly. Izuku, with a trembling voice, what's going on? That's my mother. Rumi, frowning, this can't be good. Shigaraki, on the screen, with an unhinged smile, good afternoon, dear heroes and heroines. It seems I have a surprise for you. Izuku, clenching his fists, what do you want, Shigaraki? Shigaraki, pointing at Izuku on the screen, oh, I just wanted to say hello to the next big villain of the story, Zenitsu. How are you feeling, son of Midnight? Rumi, looks at Izuku with concern, Izuku, don't fall for his game. Izuku, takes a deep breath, trying to keep calm, what have you done with my mother, Shigaraki? Shigaraki, laughs, oh, don't worry. Your mother is safe, for now. But I can't say the same for you, if you don't obey. Izuku, his eyes flash with anger, what do you want me to do? Shigaraki, his smile widens, oh, it's simple. I want you to join us, the League of Villains. You have great potential, Zenitsu, and it would be a shame to waste it. Rumi, frowns even more, don't do it, Izuku. Don't become what they want you to be. Izuku, looks at Rumi with determination, I won't, Rumi. I won't become a villain. But I will do whatever it takes to save my mother. Shigaraki, laughing, interesting choice, Zenitsu. We'll see how long you hold out before you change your mind. Until then, enjoy the show. Transmission cuts out. Izuku, clenches his teeth in anger, I'm going to save my mother, whatever it takes. Rumi, puts a hand on Izuku's shoulder, we'll be in this together, Izuku. I promise. Melissa looks at Izuku with determination. We will save Midnight. With their hearts full of determination, Izuku, Rumi and Melissa rushed to plan their rescue. Izuku knew he couldn't afford to waste time, every second was crucial, as they had to save Izuku's mother. Izuku, looking at Rumi and Melissa, we need a plan. We need to act fast. Rumi nods, I agree. But first we need to know where they're holding her. Melissa looks at Izuku with determination. I have access to the city's surveillance systems. I can try to track the location of the transmission. Izuku nods, perfect, Melissa. Do it as quickly as possible. While Melissa worked on tracking the location, Izuku and Rumi began preparing to take on the League of Villains. They knew it would be a dangerous task, but they were willing to risk everything to save Midnight. Rumi, preparing his equipment, Izuku, we don't know what awaits us out there. We have to be prepared for anything. Izuku, affirming, I know, Rumi. But we can't let fear stop us. My mother needs our help and we're going to save her. Finally, Melissa managed to locate the League of Villains base. It was in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Without hesitation, the trio headed there, with determination in their hearts and a burning desire to save Midnight. When they reached the warehouse, they were met with stiff resistance from the henchmen of the League of Villains. But Izuku, Rumi and Melissa fought bravely, never backing down in the face of danger. Finally, they managed to reach Midnight, who was bound and blindfolded in a dark room. With tears in her eyes, Izuku ran to her mother and released her from her bonds. Midnight, hugging Izuku tightly, I'm so proud of you, Izu. You are a true hero. Izuku hugs her mother tenderly, I couldn't have done it without Rumi and Melissa. We are a team. Izuku, Rumi and Melissa started to return home after rescuing Midnight. They are sharing laughter and celebrating their victory when suddenly a flash of light surrounds Izuku and disappears before everyone's eyes. Rumi screams out of concern, Izuku, where are you? Melissa looks around worriedly, he can't have disappeared, just like that. Izuku opens his eyes and finds himself in a huge stadium, surrounded by villains and nomas. Panic and worry flood his heart like never before. Izuku, looking around determinedly, this is bad, very bad. Shigaraki appears on a giant screen in the stadium, grinning sinisterly. Shigaraki, sneering, well, it looks like our dear Zenitsu has decided to join the League of Villains. What do you say, Zenitsu? Do you want to avoid an unpleasant fate and join us? Izuku, clenching his fists, don't even think about it, Shigaraki. I'll never join the League of Villains. Shigaraki smiles even wider. Shigaraki, in an icy voice, very well, then. If that's the way you want it, you'll have to take the consequences. Let the battle begin. Battle erupts in the stadium as Izuku fights valiantly against the villains and the nomas. Rumi and Melissa watch in anguish from their phones as the battle was broadcast all over Japan. The three women were praying for Izuku to get out of that situation safely. Rumi, with trembling voice, please, Izuku, stay safe. Melissa, with tears in her eyes, you have to come back to us, Izuku. We can't lose you. Midnight was touching her chest and crying silently, she was very worried about her son. Meanwhile, Izuku is facing hordes of villains and nomas, and using his abilities to deal with the tide of enemies. She currently used her first transformation, giving her wolf-like features. His heart beats fiercely as he rushes into battle, determined to destroy the League of Villains once and for all. Izuku, in his first form and with his wolf traits, he created bursts of energy from his clawed hands. I will not give up. I will not let evil win. The villains and nomas advance with ferocity, but Izuku does not retreat. With every blow, with every move, he channels his strength and determination to resist the onslaught of the enemies. Rumi and Melissa look on worriedly from the screen, watching Izuku's fierce battle as he fights against the overwhelming enemy forces. Rumi, clenching her fists tightly, Izuku, stay strong. We know you can do it. Melissa, in a trembling voice, you have to defeat them, Izuku. Don't give up. The battle reaches its climax as Izuku is surrounded by several powerful villains and nomas. Despite the exhaustion he begins to feel, he refuses to retreat, fueled by the strength of his will and the desire to protect the ones you love. Izuku, breathing heavily, I can't give up. With a cry of determination, Izuku unleashes his full power, the power of darkness, a darkness that will absorb the darkness of the world, enveloping the stadium in a surge of violet energy. The villains and Nomus are thrown back by the force of the attack, creating a moment of calm in the fierce battle. As the dust settles, Izuku emerges from the rubble, breathing heavily, but with a look of determination in his now yellow eyes. Those closest to him, such as his mother and her friends, are surprised, for Izuku was in his Zenitsu form. Something he rarely does, as it is sometimes hard to control himself in that form made of hate. The villains and Nomus slowly get up, but they know they have underestimated the young hero. Izuku holds his stance firmly while wielding his saber. This is not over yet. I will not rest until justice prevails and darkness is eradicated. The viewers watching the broadcast were amazed by the transformation of that hero. For from his appearance, he looked more like a villain. Izuku began to wave his saber with undulating movements. Rising waves shouted his technique. Seconds later several slashes of great power crashed into several of the villains and Nomu. Izuku disappeared in a black and violet flash and began slashing at his enemies. The villains received deep cuts and the Nomus were slashed until they stopped regenerating and died. Izuku, in his Zenitsu form, stands in the center of the stadium, exhausted but triumphant. Around him lie the defeated villains and lifeless Nomus, as the crowd watching the broadcast erupts in applause and shouts of admiration. As the crowd continues to applaud and celebrate, Rumi and Melissa watch the broadcast with tears in their eyes, their hearts filled with pride and fear for the state of their boyfriend. Rumi, with a trembling voice, he did it, Melissa. Izuku has defeated everyone. Melissa, holding Rumi's hand tightly, yes, but at what cost? He's too wounded. And it was not for less, because Izuku had lost one of his wolf ears by a Nomu's bite and one of his eyes was bleeding. Because some Nomu instead of a fist had hundreds of blades instead of a hand. Izuku, in his Zenitsu form, staggers slightly as the adrenaline of battle begins to wear off. Despite the cheers from all over Japan, his thoughts are on his loved ones, worried about how they will react to his state after the battle. Izuku, breathing heavily, I need to go back to them. I need to make sure they're okay. With renewed determination, Izuku heads towards the exit of the stadium, determined to meet up with Rumi and Melissa and her mother and make sure they are safe. Izuku limps towards the exit of the stadium, his mind filled with thoughts of his mother and girlfriends, wishing it was time to rest and recover from the intense battle. However, before he can take a step to leave the stadium, a deafening noise is heard as Izuku is run over by a trailer that generates a violent explosion that launches him into the air. Izuku, he screams in surprise and pain as he is thrown by the explosion, his body crashes hard against the ground. Through the smoke and debris, an imposing figure emerges, the number one villain, whose presence is as feared as it is legendary. With a sadistic smile on his face, he approaches Izuku, who lies weak and wounded on the ground. AFO, in a dark, menacing voice speaks to a weak Izuku. Looks like little Zenitsu has caused quite a ruckus today. Too bad he won't get to see the end of this story. Izuku struggles to get up, his body sore and weakened from the impact, but his spirit is still strong and determined to emerge victorious from this battle. Izuku, with a faltering voice, I won't give up, surrender. I will not allow you to hurt my precious people. Villain number one sneers as he slowly approaches Izuku, his presence emitting an aura of pure evil. AFO, with an evil laugh, ha ha ha. Jijejo, Zenitsu, you're so naive. Your determination is admirable, but in this world, strength is all that matters. And yours is insignificant compared to mine. Before Izuku can react, the number one villain raises his hand, ready to strike the final blow that will put an end to Izuku's valiant resistance. Our hero's fate hangs in the balance, as darkness looms over him with overwhelming intensity. Izuku takes the impact of villain number one's blow and is thrown several meters, his body twisted in pain. Although his body suffers, his spirit is strengthened as he hears the voices of his mother and girlfriend in his mind. Even though they are not here, he can hear the screams of those three women who are his world. With every fiber of his being, He refuses to give up, determined to face the most powerful villain he has ever faced. With effort, Izuku stands up, his body trembling with pain, but his gaze firm and determined. Though his body is wounded, his spirit is stronger than ever, fueled by the love and support of those around him, even in the darkest of times. Izuku, breathing shakily, I can't give up. I have to protect them. Villain number 1 looks at Izuku with a mixture of surprise and disdain, unable to understand how a hero with such injuries can continue to resist with such determination. AFO, in a mocking voice, are you still standing, Zenitsu? You should have learned your place and surrendered to me. Izuku, in a firm voice, I will never give up. As long as there is hope, I will fight. As long as I have my precious people, I will continue to strengthen myself and protect them from the likes of you. Izuku took his saber. Everyone thought he would attack, but the surprise came when the hero Zenitsu began to play a melody. Her friends and her mother were frightened. Izuku one day confessed that the only way to use her power was to play a tune, but if she used it she didn't know if she would ever stop being Zenitsu. Izuku began to walk, and with every step, Izuku approaches the number 1 villain, ready to face him with everything he has. Although his body is wounded, his determination remains unwavering. The final battle is about to begin, and the fate of Izuku and his loved ones hangs in the balance. With pain and anger burning within him, Izuku faces the number 1 villain with renewed determination. In an act of desperation, he decides to activate the full power of his Zenitsu transformation, allowing the darkness that lies within him to be fully unleashed, even if it is at the cost of his humanity. Izuku, in a trembling but determined voice, I have no choice. If I want to protect those I love, I must embrace my darkness fully. With an intense flash, Zenitsu's aura expands around him, enveloping him in a dark and powerful energy. His eyes glow with an unearthly intensity as he prepares to take on villain number 1 with everything he has, regardless of the consequences. Villain number 1 watches in awe and fascination as Izuku transforms before his eyes, his presence now filled with ominous and defiant power. Villain number 1, with a sinister smile, interesting, it seems you have decided to embrace your true power. But even that won't be enough to defeat me. Izuku, in a dark, resonant voice, will see AFO. I just know that one will not make it out of this place alive. With a shout of defiance, Izuku lunges towards the number 1 villain, his Zenitsu form glowing with overwhelming intensity. The battle between Izuku in his Zenitsu form and the number 1 villain, AFO, is unleashed in all its splendor. AFO displays a wide range of abilities. Each attack is launched with the intention of destroying Izuku once and for all. AFO, with a maniacal laugh, it's no use, Zenitsu. No matter how much you try to resist, your efforts will be in vain. Izuku, with his saber in hand, bravely faces AFO's attacks. With skill and mastery, he uses every ounce of strength to repel the villain's onslaught, deflecting AFO's projectiles and counterattacking with lethal precision. Izuku, with determination in his voice, no matter how powerful you are, AFO, I won't let you harm those I love. The intensity of the battle reaches its climax as Izuku and AFO clash with unbridled fury. The stadium rumbles with the clash of their powerful blows. Spectators watch in awe and fear, knowing they are witnessing a confrontation that will decide the course of the world. Amidst the chaos, Izuku clings to his resolve, determined to prevail against AFO's forces. The clash of powers and abilities continues, each fighting with all their might for supremacy in this epic battle between good and evil. Izuku was beginning to feel his strength waning and he was beginning to see blurred. He gritted his teeth hard as he could not give up, not before defeating AFO. Izuku, aware that he cannot win a direct confrontation against AFO, makes a risky decision. Izuku in his Zenitsu form allows AFO to seriously injure him and in the process loses his right hand, and even with the pain of the wound he patiently waits for the right moment to counterattack. Izuku, with determination in his eyes, enduring the pain, I have to be cunning. I must wait for my chance to attack. AFO, confident in his superiority, is careless for an instant as he revels in Izuku's agony. In that moment of distraction, Izuku seizes the opportunity and employs his special technique, rising waves. Shouted with all his might and with a sudden movement, he creates a series of energy blasts that severely injure the villain, surprising him and leaving him vulnerable. AFO, screaming in surprise and pain, "Damn it. You're crazy. You let yourself get hurt just to make me trust you." I scream in pain and hatred for falling into a trap. Izuku doesn't answer him and seizes the opportunity. With resolution and precision, he lunges at AFO with his saber raised high. With a swift and precise movement, he ends the life of Japan's most dangerous villain, cutting off his head and putting an end to AFO's tyranny. Silence spreads throughout Japan as the situation settles and the reality of what has just occurred sinks into the minds of everyone present. Izuku remains standing, his saber impregnated with the blood of the number one villain, and his gaze reflects a mixture of exhaustion and relief. Spectators watching through the screens hold their breath, taking in the impact of Izuku's victory. In the crowd, the faces of Rumi, Melissa and Midnight reflect a mixture of concern and pride for the man they love the most. Finally, a collective sigh of relief fills the air as the crowd erupts in applause and cheers. Izuku's victory is celebrated as a triumph of heroism over adversity, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the light of hope can prevail. Ambulances and a large number of officers rush to the battle site. Rumi and Melissa come running to him, hugging him tightly, while Midnight looks at him with pride and tenderness in her eyes. She wanted to hug him too, but she knew that her son's girlfriends needed this moment. Izuku saw his mother and waved to her. She couldn't take it anymore and ran to her son. She was so strong that she threw her son to the ground, while crying like she had never cried before. "Baka Baka, you're a baka. You don't know the pain I went through. I felt my world crumble when I saw you were about to lose." Midnight was still crying while still on top of her son. Even in his Zenitsu form and his intimidating appearance, you could see the affection he had for his mother. Izuku with some effort raised his hand and began to stroke his mother's hair, as she always stroked him when she was sad. Midnight upon seeing this pouted, "Baka, even if you spoil me, I'll still be mad at you." Izuku and Midnight looked at each other and then laughed. In everyone's eyes it was a special moment, and no one wanted to interrupt it. Shortly after, Izuku is rushed to the hospital after several hours of his intense battle. His mother and girlfriends enter the room, their hearts filled with anguish and worry as they see the state Izuku is in. Despite his injuries, Izuku is still in his Zenitsu form, a visual proof of the price he has paid for his bravery. Izuku's mother, in a trembling voice looking at her comatose son, "Izuku, my boy. Sniff, please wake up." Rumi and Melissa run to him, with tears in their eyes seeing their beloved's wounds. They cling to him in desperation, unable to contain their pain at the sight of his suffering. Rumi, between sobs, "I can't believe what has happened." Melissa, crying, "Izuku, please wake up." The doctor enters the room, his expression serious as he assesses Izuku's injuries. It is clear that the wounds are serious and that his recovery will be long and difficult. "Doctor," in a serious tone, "Izuku's injuries are serious. He has lost part of an ear, an eye, and his right arm. He will need several operations and a long period of rehabilitation." The doctor's words fall like a weight in the room, leaving everyone in a heavy silence as they assimilate the magnitude of Izuku's injuries. Despite the pain and uncertainty that awaits them, Izuku's mother, Rumi and Melissa stand firmly by their loved one, ready to support him every step of the way on the road to recovery. They know it will be a difficult journey, but they are determined to stand by his side, whatever obstacles stand in his way. With the love and support of those around him, Izuku begins his arduous road to recovery, knowing that he is not alone in this battle. Although the road will be difficult, the light of hope shines on the horizon. 5 months have passed since the intense battle that left Izuku severely injured. During this time, he has temporarily retired from his career as a hero to focus on his recovery. One night, under the light of the full moon, Izuku finds himself playing his flute. He finds solace in the music as he reflects on his life and his future in life. Suddenly, a familiar figure appears before him, emanating a powerful and mysterious presence. He introduces himself as the original Zenitsu. Izuku was amazed as Zenitsu tells him the origin of his power. But he did not come to tell his life story. Zenitsu offers Izuku the chance to give up his gift in exchange for becoming fully human again. Original Zenitsu, in a serene voice, Izuku, you have endured much for the sake of others. But you don't have to carry this burden forever. I offer you the chance to become human again, you can be free of the responsibilities that come with this power. Izuku contemplates the offer, feeling a mix of emotions as he considers the implications of giving up his gift. Finally, he makes a decision and extends his hand to accept Zenitsu's offer. Izuku, with determination in his eyes, I'm ready to leave this power behind. I want to be human again. As he shakes Zenitsu's hand, a flash of light envelopes Izuku, transforming him back into his human form. However, unlike before, he retains some features of his heritage as Zenitsu, the wolf ears and wolf tail. Zenitsu withdraws while playing his flute, leaving Izuku with a sense of awe and gratitude for the opportunity he has been granted. Before disappearing, Zenitsu turns to Izuku one last time. You are worthy, Izuku. Retain my power and be the new Zenitsu of this world. You are now in full control of your gift, without repercussions. Demonstrate the power of the Duke Org Zenitsu. Izuku, now reborn with a new purpose and power, returns to his hero career with renewed determination. Together with his two girlfriends, Rumi and Melissa, he embarks on unforgettable adventures, protecting the innocent and fighting for justice in a world full of challenges and dangers. With Zenitsu's legacy as his guide, Izuku faces every challenge with courage and wisdom, becoming a symbol of hope and heroism for all those in need of protection. While Melissa became the new symbol of peace that protects them during the day, Izuku was the symbol of darkness. The one who would protect them from all the evil lurking in the shadows. And Rumi being Rumi, he didn't give a damn about any title and kept kicking villains' asses. Although she now possessed a radiant smile, for very soon she would grow her new family and the baby growing inside her. He would train him to continue his legacy of continuing to kick villain ass. End of story. Today's question is, do you prefer stories that last 30 minutes or an hour or more? Don't forget to write your answer in the comments. Remember that every Sunday I will dedicate some of my time to read your comment. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Although we continue to grow in number of subscribers, every day the number of people subscribing per day is decreasing. I would be very motivated to see more people subscribing to the channel. Lastly, I had to report that I will be leaving Wattpad. It's a bit stressful for me to be focused on YouTube and Wattpad at the same time.